We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with our signature Talking Liberty segment, in which we analyze the affronts to freedom and the liabilities attached to liberty in the modern day. And more importantly, how they impact you. And we're joined, as always, by the custodian of constitutional correctness, host of the Uprising podcast, and Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor, Mr. Scott D. Cosenza, Esquire. Welcome back to the show,
number
Scott.
one fan of Liberty Nation Radio, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well, thank. Hopefully that's not a Kathy Bates style number one fan, and I'll be hobbled a la James Caan in the Misery movie by Stephen King.
I saw a good meme the other day, by the way, and it was like, "This is the government." You know, it was Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates, I love you. Yeah.
That make an appearance on the Liberty Nation conservative meme of the day.
I tell you what, Scott, I'll put that up on Monday morning for all of those radio listeners. They can check out the daily conservative meme on libertynation.com. It's a cracking little selection of memes to make you laugh. So, Scott, what I want to talk about today, it comes in the wake of Joe Biden's swath of pardons for marijuana possession, people who have been sent to prison for marijuana possession. And so we kind of assume that there's very much a liberalization of the approach to marijuana in the United States. And yet, California's marijuana legalization programs and efforts, they've gone so poorly that I'm reading that they're actually expanding the drug war.
All right, well, there's a couple things there to unpack.
Really,
all right,
gotten things so bad that they have to do it the complete opposite.
It's not that their efforts have gone so poorly. It's that they, what is the effort designed to do? Suppress the growing of marijuana. It's not successful there. They want all marijuana to be grown within the confines of their taxable and regulatable structure that they've laid out. The problem is that those regulations and taxes are so onerous that the people who are growing marijuana illegally still see enough of the profit motive to overcome the criminal behavior. Basically, why do we have drug dealing and drug sales in the United States? Same idea. It's worth more than the penalty for those who choose. Same thing here. But
Scott, there seems to be a lesson here that I just want to interrupt to make sure that we're understanding the moral significance on this. Now, are you saying that people who...
Mark, I want you to put a pin in your question if you would. Okay, I understand what you're trying to get to. Yeah. But I think what I should have done first was talk about the Biden pardon, because there's a lot to get into with these state issues. But first, let's talk, if we might, about that federal pardon issue.
Okay, I have a couple of questions I'd like cleared up on the Biden mass pardoning thing. Am I right in thinking that there's nobody presently in prison for marijuana possession that would be impacted by this, but the benefit of it comes in having their rights returned? Is that correct?
All the federal prisoners who were there because of marijuana convictions only at the federal level have been let out as a result of Biden's pardons. They amounted to a number of 0 persons, as we can best determine. Yeah. So he got
that 0 person is very happy today, though, and no doubt casting his midterm vote.
There are some people who will no doubt have better lives because they don't have a conviction on their records that they otherwise would have. So I don't mean to minimize the action for those people.
Yeah. They have their rights
what
fully
we must minimize is the idea that Joe Biden has acted at all, to the extent that he has the power to legalize or normalize marijuana in the United States. He's literally done. It's almost like a genius move in a way, Mark. Like, if you could devise a way to get, tons and tons of ink spilled that you did A, but actually none of A really happened, and you didn't do anything to actually move the needle. That's what it's like, some magic trick of some sorts. When I first heard the news, I rejoiced as somebody who opposes marijuana prohibition in the United States and everywhere. And then I started looking at what actually happened, and it was just so remarkable that he did nothing. There are now...
Scott, it reminds me of there's an old question that used to be asked, and it kind of represented a range of questions that would be used as gotchas towards politicians. This seems that this is the opposite. And the question was, tell me, when did you stop beating your wife? And of course, there's no particular answer either.
Joe Biden
I never have, or I never started.
Joe Biden didn't even send an email to his army of federal prosecutors that are working today to say, oh, by the way, don't prosecute any more of these crimes. In other words, there's been no guidance, no additional guidance for Biden to do this.
So let's see how this ties in with California's marijuana legalization. The point I was trying to get to earlier is that as with many laws, that there are always going to be people willing to break them if the motive is enough, which is why gun laws, for example, and I'm sure that you saw exactly where I was going with this, that if we outlaw all guns, only outlaws will have guns. I mean, let's be fair, California is a regulation state. It's the regulatory driver of the United States, or at least tries to be, as recent Supreme Court cases will attest. But because of the need within the state, the political need within the state for regulation, that it's forcing people for monetary gain to stick with the illegal growing. Is that about right?
The taxing and regulation is so heavy that it has created a massive spread in the marketplace for what you can grow and sell marijuana for, not participating with the state system, versus what you can sell versus, what it costs, and then you can recover if you were within the state system. And so the growers and sellers are just exploiting that spread.
Am I right in thinking, though, that because of obviously free market economics does work even in California, that the legal growers and distributors are basically they're fighting a losing battle, aren't they?
I think that there's always going to be a market for the legal product for people who don't mind paying the extra money. But for the bargain hunters, they're fighting a losing battle, and that they'll fully extinguish those sales because as long as that discount exists and it's significant enough, I think the market will fill that void. There's a way to talk about this without talking about marijuana real quick, which is just that American mafia families got a great deal of business by running what they call the daily number. And the daily number is just a lottery number. It was before the governments decided to get into the lottery business. But the governments did get into the lottery business because they saw how much money the mob was making. So what does the mob do? They pay out more per dollar than the government does. If you buy a lottery ticket for $1 in America, the total return on that ticket might be like 72 cents or something like that. And then you add a dime or more for the mob return. So they're providing more value in the marketplace, less overhead, and they have been successful in maintaining their numbers rackets. That's what they call it. Here are the numbers rackets when like it's almost.
Yeah, I've read my Mario Puzo, and it's really
that's what that's about, right?
It's really no coincidence that the mafia came to prominence during Prohibition.
Yeah,
it's no coincidence there at all.
So it's the same idea here. These people are not participating in the government tax and regulation thing. One of the points that Scott Shackford, Reason reporter who wrote about this, made was that it's such a union-friendly state. You're going to get these people to cut your marijuana down. You'd think you could get, you'd think that would be a job that you'd be able to pay a very minimal amount for. But if you have to pay California union wages and, full dental and medical and send their kids to college, well, you can imagine that it makes sense to grow some weed in the mountains and the hills,
Yeah, and of course, there's the stuff that's imported as well, because imports are always cheaper across the porous border.
They grow it local because it's easier that way. That's part of what the California Attorney General Rob Bonta sort of selling this measure as. It's protecting California natural resources. And it's true that these grows are detrimental to the natural resources. They use chemicals. As you can imagine, they're not great stewards of the land like maybe somebody else would be. If you're grabbing an illegal marijuana grow in parkland. But at the same time, that's not the reason that we see motivating the California government. It's more about money. They eradicated 158,000 marijuana plants in 1984, Mark. In 2022, after marijuana has been legalized in California, we've got the pardon thing for nationally. They eradicated 974,000 plants just last week. So that's the level of where things are.
When government gets involved, that's just the way of things. Scott DiCosenza, thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.
And that's almost it for this edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard on the Radio America Network. I want to take a moment to thank our guests, Lisa K. Donner, Andrew Moran, and Scott DiCosenza. and of course you, the listener at home, for tuning in. My parting thought for this week, Voltaire once said, "One day everything will be well. That is our hope. Everything's fine today. That is our illusion." And that's what we have today. The political facts, the political promises that are made, they are indeed illusions. We are being lied to. We are misled, all with the promise of tomorrow being better than today. But as you know, as you all know by now, tomorrow never comes. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.